Good evening, and welcome to the third debate of the 2011 municipal election season, brought to you by the Kokomo Tribune and the Kokomo Perspective. We'll feature the 5 candidates running for an at-large seat on the Kokomo Common Council. We have Republicans Kevin Summers, Tyson Damitz, squaring off against Democrats Mike Kennedy, Bob Hayes, and Rich Boruff. I'm Don Wilson, publisher of The Perspective, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event, which is scheduled to last approximately 60 minutes. It is being live streamed on the Kokomo Perspective website, kokomoperspective.com. The event is also being filmed for broadcast on KGov. We would like to thank Kokomo Center Schools for the use of their facilities here at Central Middle School in downtown Kokomo. We'd also like to thank the Political Science Club from Indiana University for providing some of the questions for tonight's debate. The format for tonight's debate is as follows. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening. Each candidate will be given, 2-minute opening statement. Then we will begin the questions, with each candidate being given the opportunity to respond first to a question on a rotating basis. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. All questions for tonight's debate were developed by the editorial staffs of the Kokomo Tribune and the Kokomo Perspective, and were delivered to me less than 1 hour ago. Should I feel it necessary, I may ask the candidates to expand on the response to these questions, and I may ask a follow-up questions based on their statements. Let's begin. Mike Kennedy, Democrat Mike Kennedy, 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Kennedy. I'd like to thank the Perspective and the Tribune and Kokomo Center School Corporation for allowing us to use their facilities this evening to talk about the issues that face us in the next 4 years. I'm a lifelong resident of Kokomo, married to my lovely wife Susan for 23 years. 4 years ago, I was very fortunate to be elected to this council, and what a 4 years it has been. We've faced probably some of the toughest economic times that we could probably face in our city, in our state, in our country. But we've weathered the storm, and through the actions of the council, we've prepared ourselves for the next 4 years. I was also fortunate to be elected president of this council all 4 years by my fellow council members. It's an honor that I don't take lightly. If you all recall, 4 years ago when we were elected, the majority of this council had never served before. And I had been almost 18 years since I had served on the council. During the 4 years, we've lost one member, Councilman Dan Hayworth, to death. We missed him a lot. And we had another member who was elected to the state legislature and had to resign. So as we sit here today, only 2 members served in the previous administration. So as the council president, I feel like that it was a job of mentoring new council members, also a new mayor, which I must say that has done a great job. The responsibility of this council is to legislate and budget. I feel like that this council has done that well, considering the economic conditions that we faced. We've set ourselves up for the next 4 years, and I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you very much.
Next will be Bob Hayes.
Thank you. I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank the Kokomo Tribune, the Kokomo Perspective, and the Indiana University Political Science Club. It's great to see we have participation from our students. If you're looking for a council person that has 10 years of experience on the city council, if you're looking for a person that has been finance chair 3 terms or 3 times on the city council, if you're looking for a person that's been president 3 times of the city council, if you're looking for someone that can hit the ground running when elected to the city council, Bob Hayes is your man. I'm asking tonight for your vote and your support. I hope I'll be able to answer all the questions to the best of my ability. And at the same time, I want to bring to the job of city councilman at large experience that I have on a global scale. I was one of the members of the governor's first trade mission to Japan. That was a bipartisan effort. And we were able to make some contacts with many companies in Japan at that time that I hope may one day bear fruit for this community. I also represented the council in the formation of the Greater Economic Kokomo Alliance in its infancy. And believe you me, that was a tough situation. Everybody had their little turf, but the good things have come out of it. We now have an alliance that is everybody's pulling in the same direction. I'm looking forward to serving and working with Mayor Goodnight and President Kennedy and this council. And I hope I can bring some experience to the fore, and so I can help Mike and we can help this city go from, we've already went from good to great. Now let's maintain that greatness. And thank you for listening to me tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Kevin Summers.
I would also like to thank the Kokomo Tribune, Kokomo Perspective, Kokomo Center Schools, and the IUK Political Science Department. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you out here tonight, and thank you for coming. Also, I'd like to thank those that will be viewing this debate on KGov. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Kokomo. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 29 years. We have 3 children, 2 grandchildren. My grandchildren are 3-year-old twins. And needless to say, Poppy has had to dust off his shoes just to be able to keep up. I'm a graduate of the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. I'm a 13-year veteran of the Kokomo Police Department, and I have served currently in the Code Enforcement Division. I'm active in the Neighborhood Watch program, and I've also served as a youth DARE instructor. I have worked in our schools as a liaison officer, and I have connected and know and understand the challenges that face many of our youth in our community. I have served many of the youth in our community as in a civic group such as Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Kiwanis, and also on the board at the City of First Credit Union. As you can see, I am committed to this community. I chose my profession because I feel I have a servant's heart. And I chose to serve this community as a councilman because I want to represent each and every one of you. Being a councilman at large means that I not only represent the districts, but I also represent the city as a whole. It is my desire to continue to serve the citizens of this community for another 4 years as your city councilman at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyson.
First, I would like to thank the Kokomo Tribune, the Kokomo Perspective, Kokomo Center Schools, and the IUK Political Science Department for hosting this debate. I'd also like to thank all of you citizens who have come out tonight and those that are viewing on KGov. My name's Tyson Damitz. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Republican. I'm a first time to run for any political office. I'm a fiscal conservative, but more importantly, I'm an active voting citizen in this community. I've lived here all my life with the exception of my college years, and I'm a doctorate of physical therapy that has had the great pleasure of treating lots of folks here in our community. I firmly believe in a few things: integrity, honesty, hard work, and the God-given right to use my brain to make common sense decisions. I'm a Christian, and I believe firmly that those principles founded this nation, and I want to see that continue. 3 short years ago, we were the 3rd most dying city. A few weeks ago, we were awarded Community of the Year by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Now, I believe that is an amazing honor and a testimony to our hard work, but we're a long way away from the amazing, prosperous years of before. I believe that given the opportunity, I can assist in making this community and helping with this community to restore its prosperity and greatness. We have to foster our small businesses and promote their growth with intelligence and unwavering effort. Lord knows that Washington and career politicians are not going to help us with this. We must lead like the city of First to diversify our workforce, bring in new small business, increase our quality of life, protect our citizens, and retain our workers that don't want to live here. We only are going to do this through harnessing Kokomo's inherent innovative spirit, fostering small business growth, and promoting the city for the wonderful aspects that we have. If you need to get excited about Kokomo, I encourage you to visit greaterkokomo.com and watch the 5 videos labeled Comeback Stories. It made me want to celebrate Kokomo's resolve, its fortitude, and its dedication to a comeback. I love this city. I want to raise my family here, and I want to see my fellow citizens proud of this great community once again. And that's why I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Richie Boruff.
Good evening. My name is Rich Boruff. I have a wife, Brianne, 3 children, Taylor, Cole, and Hayden. I've been a lifelong resident of the city of Kokomo. I've been fortunate to wear a couple hats in this community. I've spent 8 years working for the Kokomo Street Department in capacity as a member of ASME Local 2185 and a leader. I've sat through contract negotiations in 1996 and negotiated an agreement for our workforce. I'm currently the president of UAW Local 685, which is the largest workforce in the Chrysler structure. I currently, and I'd like to apologize for being late. I just arrived here from Detroit, where we reached a tentative agreement with Chrysler and ensured the largest investment in history of that corporation right here in my hometown. $1.3 billion. You know, and what's turned this community around is what we need to face is manufacturing, jobs, job growth. That's what's turned us from being the fastest dying city in the United States, Kokomo, Indiana, my home. I also was the president of that local union and watched that workforce deteriorate to its lowest levels of employment in the history of this community. We've made a heck of a turnaround. We've negotiated work rules that have established, you know, the most competitive work standards in the world. That's what's going to take to bring Kokomo back and turn things around. I sat in a city council meeting, and I remember recalling city councilmen making the remarks that there was a high populated meeting, that we hoped that there was that many people turn out when they talk about new jobs. That's the only reason I'm running for this, is to give an insight to what's transpired with Chrysler and the good times and the bad, and could help this council out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. We'll start with you, Rich, since it's down there. As tax dollars continue to be in short supply for local government, do you feel that privatizing certain city services, such as trash collection or wastewater management, is a viable option to reduce expenditures?
No, I don't. I think that when you lose control by privatization, and it goes back to, you know, the lessons I've learned from Ford. When you look at history repeating itself, when Ford built the Rouge, he was insourcing work to control the capacity of his product. City services are no different. Yeah, you outsource that work, you put a liability out there to increase costs. After you outsource that work, I actually would like to look at insourcing work, because after working there for 8 years at the Kokomo Street Department, I know you got a competitive workforce that could do nothing but save this community money by performing work as far as paving our own streets instead of sourcing work out. And, we got to take care of ourselves. The last thing you want to do is outsource work from your community, which is now recovering from being one of the fastest dying cities in the state of Indiana.
Thank you. Tyson?
I think, first off, the thing, it's a hypothetical, but you would have to take a look at what sort of economic benefit that may be. Is that going to save us some money? Is that going to help us to take that money and use it for some other quality programs? So there would have to be some sort of study to see how that's going to affect the bottom line. If it's going to save us some money and we're going to be able to utilize that money to better our parks, to build better roads, to build more sidewalks, to protect our community better, then I feel like that would be an adequate way to spend our money.
Kevin.
No, I wouldn't be in favor of the privatization of the sewage plant or the refuse collection area. I've seen where the cost, if once that's released out to those units, the cost of bringing those services back in the event that the service wasn't performed up to expectation. The cost of doing business would increase to where the city would no longer have control to the residents of those rate increases, and I feel it would cause the cost of doing business to our taxpayers to see some increases in the future that we as a city would not have control over.
Thank you. Bob?
No, I would not be in favor of privatization of the city departments. I work in purchasing at my place of employment, and just because you get lower cost doesn't necessarily mean you get quality service. And I think right now we're getting quality service. Why would you want to privatize or something? One of the reasons is because yes, your cost may rise, and that may be a reason to look at it, but has your quality of service or quality of the product deteriorated? And I have to say that the departments here in Kokomo are doing a great job. So, no, I would not support privatization.
Mike?
Many times privatization means loss of jobs. And the last thing that Kokomo needs is loss of jobs. We've got a great workforce of city employees that do a fantastic job for our community. So privatization of those areas is not on my agenda. Certainly we could look at different costs and see ways of reducing costs within our system, but I certainly wouldn't want to turn over those responsibilities to a private firm where the city would have no control over those activities.
Okay, Mike, we'll stay with you. Annexation on the east and west sides of the city appears to be a reality beginning in February. Do you support the annexation effort? And once these areas are absorbed into the city, how will you handle requests for service?
Well, I supported the annexation from the very first day. I felt like the city of Kokomo had to grow not only in area but in population. There are many services and activities that we were unable to receive because of our population. As far as services go, our budget this year, we set up to begin starting those services. We've built the firehouse on the southeast side, which will help in that activity, along with a substation for the police department. And in actuality, we've already been doing a lot of that service to begin with. So now we must plan for the future to develop those services that are required within the time periods that they are required to be done. And we'll be looking for the administration to provide that information to us so that we can properly act on it as a council.
Bob Hayes.
Yeah, I supported the annexation when I ran for commissioner, and I support it now. I think it was a natural progression for the city. I think it was the right thing to do at this time for the city of Kokomo. And as President Kennedy had mentioned, the current administration has looked at the budget, and they've included the cost to provide those services. And a lot of those services and things are mandated by law when you do annexation. And so what we have to do as a council is to work with the administration when the budgets are presented and to make sure we've got the best budget, the most efficient, most cost-effective budget, and that we can provide the services to those annexed areas in a quality manner. And I think we can do that.
Kevin.
The first two readings on the annexation, I was in opposition of it. I had concerns in reference to the citizens in those areas that were going to be annexed in the event that it did pass through, the different variances, the rights that the people had that are on county land now, in addition to having to upfront costs for sewers, which was going to be a very large expense for them. Upon speaking with administration, in addition to the mayor, there was a discussion and stated that we would look at being able to provide those services to those folks. And I would have liked to have seen the agreement that the mayor and his administration recently resolved with the East Side location that enabled those folks not to have to incur that expense on the sewers currently now. That would have been a upfront being able to exchange that out. As I stated, first two readings I voted no. That's what's nice about having the third readings, being able to get all the information, being able to be informed, and then make a final decision. My final decision was in favor of it. And being in law enforcement, I see the fact we go from city to county to city to provide services now, such as law enforcement to trash removal. So I think the annexation now is on its way. My concern I did share with the mayor and the administration was that I wanted to make sure that if those folks were brought in, we were going to make sure that the services were provided to them, and we'll be continue to update that as we go along and make sure those services are provided.
Thanks, Kevin. Tyson?
Although not having the opportunity to have a vote on it, I do agree with the annexation, and that there are certainly some sections of the city that just sort of make very much sense to be part of the city. I was amazed to find that on Dixon Road there are 4 homes that are in the county, just on their own small little island right by my house. Other neighborhoods, city, county, city, county. I mean, so I think as far as a logistical standpoint for our services, I think it makes sense to make that an area that is determined and bring in those citizens that are basically in the city but were county residents. As far as it is my understanding that we do have the adequate money provided in the budget to provide those services at this time, and again, as if voted into the council, I would continue to make sure that that money is there available to provide those services.
Thank you. Rich?
I would oppose the annexation. I have a real hard problem forcing constituents or residents into moving into the city limits or being annexed in. When I purchased my home in 4118 Tony Drive, I knew I lived in the city of Kokomo when I purchased it. I knew the services I would render by living in the city of Kokomo and the benefits you get voting your politicians in that represent you. And when you make a purchase of a home and you live out in the county and you know it's in the county when you purchase your home, that's your choice. And I would oppose forcing people into an annexation that would otherwise, oppose it. I think there's other ways to bring in capital, and I think that is through manufacturing, like we have done in this community for a long time. And it's here now, so, the 8 years that I've worked for this Kokomo Street Department and represented all facets of the city of Kokomo, I would use those lessons learned and what I've did in those departments for representation and, what we'd have to do.
Thanks, Rich. Tyson, we'll go to you. Tornado sirens are a subject that surfaces in Kokomo every few years. Do we need them? Why or why not?
That's definitely a tough question. I think there's been some research on the Joplin tornadoes that people had heard the sirens and just disregarded them. So, that it's a tough question between, is it weather radios or is it tornado sirens? Or what is better? I don't know that either one is better than the other. I think the biggest thing is with the media coverage that we have now available to us, and just us using our common sense to say those big storm clouds out there, we might want to pay attention. But I think a combination of allowing weather radios to the population and just access to the media, which has been done here in the last few years, having access to the digital boxes to pick up over the antenna, I think those are important outlets there.
Thank you. Rich, why don't we have you go second on this?
Could you repeat the question, Tommy?
Sure. Tornado sirens are a subject that surfaces in Kokomo every few years. Do we need them? Why or why not?
I think we need them. I think they complement the media and the radio and the information that you can get for safety. But I don't know why you would do away with something that's a complement that we've had, ever since I was a kid. I'm born, like I said, you're born and raised here. If you don't have your radio on, and I've actually been in Kokomo when the tornado sirens were going off, and didn't have the radio on, and needed them to get out of the way of actually one being in the vicinity of Markland and Dixon.
Thank you. Kevin.
We've, as a council, if you've been tuning into KGov or reading the newspapers, there's been some discussion and dialogue for some time. I know that the tornado sirens have been around, and especially in the smaller communities, it seems like they've really utilized it. What I'd like to do is continue to look at the technology that's out there. As walking in the campaign, I have discussed with different folks that's brought up the radios that the administration has provided, and they really enjoyed that. They spoke that, when they're out and about the house, they're listening, and, they can pick that up. The Joplin, Missouri concerns me the fact that there was even some folks that stated that they didn't even hear the sirens. Now, there again, common sense should prevail to, you see the big storm coming, take that into effect and get in and protect the family. But what I'd like for us to do is look at any and all new technology coming out. There's a callback system with the phone system that can be utilized. My son has a phone that I'm not that technology advanced with apps and all that you can even get that through your phones, and everybody has access, at least the majority of folks today, with the cell phone. So I think there's 2 or 3 things I think we have to look at and ultimately try to choose what's best for our community and maybe make it available for 2 or 3 different options. But
thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Bob Hayes.
When I was on the council, I brought this subject up about sirens, and it didn't get much mileage. I think sirens are a part of an overall comprehensive early warning system. I think the radios are great, but what about that little league team or that soccer team that's out practicing? The coach doesn't have a weather radio on them. Now, you can say you can look at the clouds. I'm sure the people at the state fairgrounds were looking at the clouds, and that storm came up awful fast. And so a storm can approach very, very quickly, and perhaps that little league team that's out practicing or that little soccer team, they hear the sirens. At least the coaches can listen. I think there's a learning curve with sirens that the community will have to get used to hearing them, but I'd like to see us revisit that and also look at what is the latest technology out there and what is the most cost-effective way of an early warning system.
The current council has debated this issue several different times, and we have gathered cost information, and they're very, very expensive, not only to buy but to maintain. That's the reason that this current council allocated funds for the radios, and they've been a very successful program, and hopefully in the future we will continue to do that. A comprehensive effort to continue looking at all the various methods of control of those activities is necessary, and we will continue to do that. I know the administration continues to look into those areas, and if something comes up, the economic times that we faced these past 4 years, we weren't able to do everything for everybody. So we had to do what we felt was the most cost-effective methods. The current sirens that we hear are already in place, and they are not operated by the city, nor controlled by the city. So right now I feel like the radios are the best way to go. if there's some better methods and cost-effective ways of doing things, we will certainly look at that.
Thanks, Mike. Bob, we'll start with you. The city of Kokomo spends tens of thousands of dollars each year to maintain the Kokomo Airport. At the same time, the most well-equipped and well-maintained airfield in the state, Grissom Air Reserve, is 15 minutes to our north and more than capable of meeting every conceivable commercial aviation need Kokomo could imagine. How do you feel city tax dollars should be used when it comes to aviation?
Well, I think this is an area that will deserve more study. I would like to see the budget and also look at the cost versus benefit of the airport. But at this time, I think this enhances your community. When you do have big corporations that come in that want to look at Kokomo, and they can land at an airport that has a runway that can handle the smaller jets, that can handle corporate jets, it gives them that much more sense of this community knows what they're doing. This community does support the proper things that would bring in business, that would bring in jobs. So at this time, I'm in favor of the Kokomo having an airport, putting our tax dollars to that, but at the same time, let's look at the cost benefits, the cost versus the benefits we get from that. So the door isn't totally closed to maybe looking at the airport and its viability.
Thank you. Mike Kennedy.
I look at our current airport situation as a real positive for this community. With the new highway that's being built, it actually puts the transportation system a lot closer to our airport. With the proper development of that area, with manufacturing and other activities out there, this airport's going to be a very plus for us. The other item to be concerned about is I work next door to the Grissom Air Reserve Base, and I got to tell you, they're flying tankers in and out of there every day, all day. Many of it is practice and for the pilots to keep their hours up. I never see commercial or private planes coming into that airport. I honestly believe, I don't know for sure, but I think when they're doing their runs with the tankers, there aren't any private or corporate planes coming in and out of that airport. So I look at our facilities and our companies here, and maybe the third reason to think about our local airport is, why do I want to send our jobs into Miami County when we have an airport in Howard County that can almost take any airplane that's currently in the air?
Thank you. Kevin.
Well, as far as the airport goes, I fully agree with Councilman Kennedy there. We've had many discussions in reference to the airport over the last few years. But I think it gives us the economic development tool to be able, as a selling point for Kokomo, that with the bypass and the connection up there to both ends, or at the north point, gives us the opportunity to let the companies know when they come in that we have the transportation to be able to get their equipment in and out, and or their jets in and out to be able to come in and visit, bring prospective clients in from around the country and around the world to be able to get. To my knowledge, the only airplanes that cannot land out there is the largest jets, but everything else with the extension that we approved over the last couple of years here, it's enabled that airport to be a little bit even beyond a little regional airport and provide a great economic tool for us in this community.
Tyson.
I also believe it's a great opportunity for us to increase our business, to bring in new clients, to foster some of that small business attitude. I agree with Councilman Kennedy in that I worked at the prison as a physical therapist, seeing patients there a couple of days a week, and there is a lot of tanker traffic, a lot of military traffic, and if that's going to impede on the ability to get a private jet in here so we can make a new business deal and bring some more jobs to this town, then I'm fully in support of continuing our Kokomo Airport.
Rich?
Well, I think you got to look at the cost versus benefit, definitely. If you take a look back at April of 2009, what happened to the largest employer in this community and the backlash that we received in Washington in regards to corporate jets and flying in and out of Kokomo Airport, I think that if you've been paying attention to the news, you won't ever see any airplanes coming from Chrysler or the UAW International Union flying in Kokomo Airport. And, I think that's why you have to look at the cost versus benefit, because we have airport just an hour away.
Yeah, if I could just expand, Donnie. And I think we all have, and I meant to mention this earlier, even the small business planes that come in, and we have an air show every 4th of July out there, gives the opportunity for these smaller little airplanes to be able to come in, view our city, take in different events, but also to be able to come in for an air show and be able to see our community. I think that gives us that added benefit also. Thank you.
Keep it there. Kevin, does Kokomo have enough firefighters and police officers to keep the community safe? If so, are there too many? If not, how will you fund additional officers?
Just finishing up our budget, I believe that we currently have enough, both firefighters and police officers. As I stated previously, through annexation, I will, along with administration, I'm sure, we'll be looking at the numbers, making sure that as we bring those services on board next year, that we evaluate and continue to evaluate that, probably even over the next year to 2 years, because the ultimate goal is we always hear response time, whether it's in the police department or the fire department, and the protection and the service to our citizens is warranted, and I want to make sure that every effort's put forth, even through the annexation and the current citizens of Kokomo, the full protection and safety of our community.
Tyson.
At this current time, I believe that we have an adequate number of police and fire. And exactly, I want to reiterate Kevin's point. Definitely we have to look at the response times, and if those start to slip, and if we're not able to provide an adequate response time for insurance purposes, for just safety, period, then we may need to reevaluate that at that time. But currently, I believe we have an adequate number.
Thank you. Rich?
I currently think that we have an adequate number of employees right now that are representing the police, the fire, and municipal employees in the city of Kokomo. My biggest concern is with this annexation, that how we could expect that workforce to endure the workload that they would endure with that annexation without adding manpower. And like I stated many times through this, I come from a manufacturing background that when your volume increases, your manpower fluxes. And I don't know how we can expect the city of Kokomo to be treated any differently and have the same results as we have with the trash removal, snow removal, the response time of our police department and our fire department.
Thank you. Bob?
I think currently we have adequate numbers in the police and fire department, but at the same time, you don't want to close the door to evaluating that on an annual basis or every 2 years. And I think one of the things it was mentioned by one of my colleagues up here was the effect that annexation will have. So we need to take a look at it, but I think right now we're doing fine. What I am in favor of also is making sure that our police and fire department is well equipped and they have the right equipment to do their job. So you're always going to see me be pro that, as long as it is a cost-effective movement toward better equipment for the fire department and the police department. They're doing a great job. They are well equipped. But I can't see us adding anyone at this time without further evaluation of the impact that annexation will have on us. And it'll take a while to get some historical data in regards to the need of increasing either one of those departments.
Please keep in mind that personnel matters are typically not a city council activity. But as we all know, public safety is a concern for all of us. We have to defer many of these personnel decisions to the administration and the chiefs of those two departments. If any of those folks come to this council and are asking for more personnel, then I'm certain and I'm very confident that the council will do what it can do and what it has to do to increase that personnel. But keep in mind, once again, I just want to reiterate that the city council typically does not get involved in personnel matters. That is an administrative function, and we would be on the budget side if it's necessary to increase. But I feel like, as everyone else has said, that we currently have enough personnel, but as things change, we constantly have to reevaluate.
Mike, is Kokomo on the right track? Do we have the right philosophy? Do we need to change at the top?
Well, I certainly don't think we need to change at the top. The current mayor and administration that's been there the last 4 years has come up with some amazing activities for us to look at. Made our job on the council a lot easier. The budget process is so streamlined that when we look at that, we know it's so lean, and we don't have to get in and cut any fat out of the budget. The ideas that Mayor Goodnight has put forth have all turned out to be pretty well for this community. 4 years ago or even 3 years ago, it looked like we were down and out, but through the efforts that he has put forth for us and that the council has acted upon, we've been able to turn this in the right direction. We're certainly not to the summit yet. We've got a long way to go, but the direction that we're going is in the right direction, and it's positive. So I'm proud of that.
Bob Hayes.
I agree with President Kennedy. We don't need change leadership at the top. I think we've got communities coming here to look at our mayor and look at what our mayor is doing so they can emulate some of the same things. So I think Mayor Goodnight and his administration are doing a great job. I used the phrase before. We've always been a good community. We're on the path of becoming, and we have become a great community. And I think the job of the council is to make sure that we maintain that greatness for the city of Kokomo. So good to great. Let's keep us there. And I think the city council, in conjunction with the administration, it's going to be our job to make sure that these enhancements we have done to the city bear fruit. And the main thing is, you hear it on TV all the time, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. And we want to try to do everything that we can to encourage and enhance jobs to come to this community, and jobs that can give people a good wage and a good living.
Yeah.
Well, as far as change, what I want to do is leave that up to the voters out there. That's their decision to make. I will make the comment that the success that we've had through the council, in addition to the administration and mayor's office working with the council, have provided some good things for this community. The abatements that we provided to 3 of our largest employers, to be able to keep those around, and not as they filed bankruptcy, but then later keeping them from closing. I think that was a benefit that's got us in the right direction. We've got a foundation of retaining those jobs, and I see that going in the right direction, in addition to some of the things that we've done uptown, the park amenities, the trails, the bike paths, all those things that look at a quality of life issue. So I'll leave it up to the voters of this community to make the decision if they want to change, or if they feel it's going in the right direction, they'll make that change. But I am supportive of my council members and the administration when working out with us in different situations.
Tyson.
I believe currently that we are heading in the right direction. I think people have the glimmer of hope to be proud again about this city. I think the award that we won just a couple weeks ago is a testament to not only the council, the administration, but more of the citizens of this community who haven't given up on this place. I think that we certainly have a ton of work to do to return us back to the glory years that were before when I was born. We need to continue to work on our quality of life, continue to beautify our parks. We need to bring people to live here. We're one of the worst cities in the state where people work here, but they don't live here. So we need to continue to try to evaluate why that is. We need citizens, and not only just for taxes, that aside, but we need them to coach our little leagues. We need them to be our deacons in our churches. We need them to help to foster the future generation of this town.
Rich.
I believe we're heading in the right direction, no doubt about it. I support this mayor, Greg Goodnight, and his administration 500%. I'd have to compliment him on his experience and his manufacturing background and how he handled the investment with the largest employer in this community. He achieved something that the previous administration couldn't, and if people really look at what's going on in our community, the biggest problem we have is jobs, bar none. And he protected 2,200 to 2,500 jobs by protecting the investment at Chrysler. If you remember, the last administration lost that volume to the Contract facility, and that facility was built in Tipton, Indiana, and would have took down Kokomo Transmission Plant, 3.1 million square foot and 2,500 jobs in this community, which equate to about 10% of our budget. When you impact the 10% of that budget, which is 75% of labor to those three unions, the police, the fire, and the municipalities, they would be directly impacted by those numbers.
Okay, Rich, we'll start with you again, or leave it with you. Howard County has requested that the city of Kokomo share in the legal expenses incurred to recapture tax revenue and assessed valuation from Delphi, Chrysler, and GMCH. Would you approve a resolution to share in those expenses? Why or why not?
So, Donnie, your question was, should we share in the expenses for the cost of the legalities?
The county was the ones that was active in acquiring the settlements with those entities we talked about. Right. They also incurred the legal expense. Okay. Should the city pay them a portion of the legal expense?
I think that we should. I think that the city of Kokomo has as much stake as anybody in those situations. And for one, I'd say that they did a great job. I, for one, glad to see that the corporation I work for stepped to the plate and made an agreement with this common council and this administration to pay back that $18 million over a 5-year loan, and what they compliment them or what they achieved over at Delphi. So I think the city of Kokomo should share in that.
Okay, thank you. Tyson?
While I wholeheartedly would like to see our city and county governments get along a little bit better and not bicker in the paper and fight each other, I'd like to see some more cooperation there. As a taxpayer of the city and the county, I don't believe that we need to pay the difference.
Well, as far as the legal fees and sitting on the council and being part of that process, I think it comes down to principle. I don't think it comes down to should we do it because we're nice people or should we do it just to get along. I think that the principal point is that we, the city taxpayers, already pay our fee to be a county resident. We're all Howard County residents. I don't want to offend my counterparts over at the Howard County. I know Jamie Shepard, Larry Merle, Sheila Poland, and Ann Wells and those folks worked hard to do that. Just like with our responsibility, we have certain responsibilities, council members, and if it's our obligation to do something, then we ought to do that. And it shouldn't come down to should we do it because we want to get along. I would say if there's other areas that we can continue to forge other partnerships, we can do that. But just to do it, just to get along, I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers that's already paid that fee. Thank you.
Bob?
Well, last time I checked, I'm a county resident too, by virtue of living in the city of Kokomo, which is in the county of Howard. So, no, I would not be in favor of the city sharing in that cost. Many people have said it's double dipping or they're having to pay twice. I think the logical thing was for the county to take the lead on that process and bear the cost that the citizens of Kokomo are paying taxes, and we pay county taxes as well. So, no, I don't think the city should have had to share in that cost. And like Kevin said, we got to get along, and we can do a better job of getting along with the county and the city. And I'm going to be there to foster that partnership. We all got to be in this together to make this community succeed. And if Howard County outside the city limits doesn't succeed, or if Kokomo doesn't succeed, the other one is hurt.
Mike?
I said it on the council floor and congratulated the county on their efforts. But some may forget that this current council had an effort in resolving that issue as well. We were fully prepared to pull the tax abatements that we had given, and oddly enough, the next day the agreement was reached. So I would like to take a little bit of credit and give some to this council, because we were fully ready in a review of tax abatements to pull those abatements during that activity. I firmly believe that as a county resident that we've already paid for their legal fees, and I'm not aware of the fact that we've ever asked for the county to cover any of the city's legal fees. So I think that's a job they're elected to do, is to collect taxes. And if they incur expenses in doing that, then that's something that they have to budget for.
Mike? Howard County did not follow the terms of the dispatch service interlocal agreement and did not notify the city of its intent to increase this dispatch budget for 2012. The City Council still has an opportunity to allocate additional dollars to cover the increased cost. How do you feel the Kokomo Common Council should address the funding of the combined city-county dispatch center?
Well, when the combined dispatch center was set up, there was basically a contract given with allocation of money from both sides, both the city and the county. To my knowledge, this council has not received any request for further funds. I've read in the papers where there's funds needed, but nothing has come across my desk, and I'm certainly pretty certain that nothing has come across the finance chair's desk either requesting any funds. So the administration may be talking with the county in regards to this, but at this point I really don't have an opinion on it, because I've not seen any figures and could not comment on whether there's enough money or not enough money until I was able to review the activities.
Bob Hayes?
Well, not being a member of the current council, I only know what I read in the papers and hear on the news. You know, you can point fingers and say, okay, this wasn't handled right or that wasn't handled right. You have an interlocal agreement. There are specific requirements of both parties in an interlocal agreement, and we should both parties make the best effort to adhere to those requirements and those sections in the agreement. At the same time, we want to make sure that our citizens are adequately covered by the dispatch. And I'll have to agree with Councilman Kennedy, President Kennedy. If you don't have anything before you to talk about, you really don't have any details. There's nothing you can act upon. So if nothing's been presented to the council at this time, you really can't do anything. But I'm sure the council, whether it comes now or 2 months later, they will act upon it, and they will look upon it in a very judicious manner and make the proper decision that benefits the citizens of Kokomo and Howard County as well.
Kevin?
The agreement that went into effect in 2011 here, I believe both parties need to adhere to it. I am concerned about the excessive amount of overtime that's being put in over the last year here, and concerned that the stress level with that job, being in that career, it's a high stress level, both sides of the police, fire, and the county. I would prefer more, and I know Sheriff Rogers has asked for additional full-time people to be there to cut down on the overtime and be able to implement the whole 911 system. I'm concerned that if we've got folks in there that are spending 8 hours and then another 4 or 8 hours, 12 and 16-hour shift, that puts a high level of stress on those folks. And to be able to perform their job and provide a very serious service to you, I do have concern. I would ask both sides to continue to work and have the dialogue and hopefully be able to come up with a resolution. But like I stated, I'd like to make sure that we've got more full-time personnel in there and less overtime.
Kevin, are they working 12, 16-hour shifts now?
Well, my understanding that, if you're calling in for overtime, then the overtime basis is normally, it can be for an additional on their day off, but my understanding is they're staying after on certain shifts or are coming in early. So there is a pattern.
As much as 4 and 8 hours over?
Yes.
That's your understanding?
Yes. Now, some of them could be just filling in for someone, too, a couple hours, but basically it comes down to generally 4 and 8 hour shifts.
First off, I want to state that I believe the 911 dispatch is absolutely an essential service that we need in this area to cover our city and county residents, and commend the CCC and the city and the county for coming to that agreement. I think we need to evaluate where this communication breakdown came up and why there is such a big discrepancy in what was budgeted and what we are now seeing as reality. I think absolutely our citizens need to be protected, but we need to be able to communicate with each other, the city and the county, to more efficiently budget for this service.
Rich?
I would never knowingly support violating an agreement that had been negotiated by the two parties. I think that if you look at it, when you look at a labor cost, when overtime comes into play, you should sit down with the parties and have discussions about bringing manpower in a straight time basis to offset the overtime and reduce the cost. But I would never be in support of violating an agreement that's been negotiated between the parties.
Last question, and it's stay in this area. Do you believe in today's world that we can fund for the worst case scenario and using dispatch as an example? In other words, do we need the same amount of staff, same amount of supervisors every hour of every day, each week? Tyson, you can go first.
Well, I think that you would have to see a study on the frequency of emergency situations in certain time periods, and then staff the dispatch based upon that. I know that in physical therapy, I have more patients between the hours of 9 and 2 than I do in the very early morning hours and the very late evening hours. So I think you need to look at that in an economical way and be, conservative and fiscally responsible about how we staff the force there.
Rich.
I think, to be honest with you, I'd have to take a look at the numbers and the manpower and the issue and the cost. I'm not prepared to give an answer on that.
Thank you. Kevin?
Being in that area of the emergency services, I think you ultimately have to be able to provide coverage that is going to enable our staff to be able to work a regular shift, periodically be on a call-in type basis or an overtime basis, but to cover for vacations and holidays and what have you. But I think ultimately the emergency service is not set up like most businesses are set up. We can run them from 8 to 4, and we know when somebody's going to be there in between those hours. The criminal element, someone setting a fire, somebody robbing a bank, all those that go into the emergency services there, someone falling, obviously we don't know. I think what we do is we prepare to make sure the coverage is that we cover all aspects of the dispatch center. Typically in the past, we've had on the KPD side, Kokomo Police Department side, we've had 2, one for ambulance and one for the police calls. County has had 1 or 2, depending on the time of day, and then then they've had a floater or a supervisor in there. And I think the emergency services, we've been doing it long enough that I think that we just reevaluate, have the coverage there. Obviously, the peak hours are going to be 8 a.m. to probably 6 p.m. when most of our communities out there are working, going to doctor visits and what have you. So if you're going to plan for...
Do you believe in funding for the worst case scenario?
No. Because I think the tragedies come, and I think that's what your point is there, Mr. Wilson. The tragedies come once in a long time. I can remember a few tragedies in our community here that's required, all call out or several additional personnel. But I think we prepare for a consistent pattern of when our community is going to use the services, and that's in the early morning to mid-evening. It slacks off late in the afternoon, and then obviously in the early morning hours. So to answer your question, I don't think we do that for the worst-case scenario, but prepare for a consistent pattern of when we're going to use the services.
Thanks, Kevin. Bob Hayes.
When you say worst-case scenario, I think you're talking about an event that occurs that has a high magnitude of impact but low frequency, and it's impossible to prevent. And I don't think you can crew, and in this case the dispatch, to cover such situations. And I think the experts are the sheriff and the director of the dispatch department, and I would hope they're being responsible managers, and they're looking at the crewing, they're looking at peak times, and making sure we have adequate coverage, and also making sure that we have a fallback plan to handle as best we can these, as you used the word, catastrophic or worst-case scenario events. But you really can't plan or budget for those. You just have to be able to be good planners, have a plan of action, and then work that plan when those situations arise.
Mike Kennedy.
I think in any public safety activity, historical data is a key. We take that data, we set our plans, we set our locations for fire departments, we set our patrols on police with that data. Catastrophes occur, very hard to plan for, but I think in any public safety activity we have to constantly monitor. And so that's what we've been able to do, and we continue to do in all public safety activities, not just dispatch, but police, fire, any emergency services that we might provide. So I think we must look at the data, keep that in mind, but I would not be in favor of budgeting for a catastrophic event, banking on it that may or may not occur.
Thank you. Thank everyone for attending, listening, or viewing tonight's debate. We'd also like to thank the candidates for their participation. It's very important that the voters be able to hear the candidates' position on issues leading up to the November 8th election. We will be back next week for the final mayor's debate. Join us here at 6 p.m. on October 19th. Thank you, candidates. You was all very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well.